Hey guys, I'm Kevin,
I'm Jake.
and this is Movie Matters. Today we're doing a little bit different episode, a little different type of episode. We're not necessarily reviewing a movie per se. We're reviewing our top five overall like our favorite movies of the year that we've reviewed, our top five disliked movies, our top five first watch or like first time watch for a lot of movies, and just an overall kind of reflection of the podcast and what we think. So it'll definitely be a little bit different of a format, but I'm looking forward to it. It's Jake's idea, which I love this idea. I think it's great because this is our first full year come to completion for this podcast, because we started in like July, in 2023, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So pretty cool that we got a year and a half under our belts with this, which is crazy. We try and have a movie out every single week. This year we did. We had 52 movies overall, which is pretty cool. So 52 weeks in a year. Yeah, I mean, what do you think, Jake? What do you want to start with? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I think, real quick, my 2 cents on the year in review, I guess, is, it's a lot to ask anybody to watch 52 movies in a year, let alone ourselves. But, if anybody missed episodes, I think this will be a good way for people to go back and watch, our top ones, or maybe avoid our least favorite ones,
or watch them and disagree.
Watch
with
them
us.
and see, if you disagree. But
Yeah.
So with that, I think we want to start with our first watches.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go first, because you did a little bit more prep than I did on this.
Yeah, it just was, when you told me about this idea, I was like, oh, cool. Like, what else can we add to make it a little fun? So I like your whole idea of the first time watch and what we thought of them. So with having 52 movies, out of those 52, 19 of them for me were first time watches, which is a good amount for me. I want that to, New Year's resolution, which... we're in 2025 now, which is crazy. Happy New Year to everyone, by the way. New Year's resolution, I want to watch more first-time watches. 19 is a lot out of the 52. I mean, it's not half, but it's somewhat close, which is cool. But I mean, I would argue that I've seen more movies than you, Jake. In my lifetime, I watch a lot of movies. And I wrote down all the 19 movies that I watched for the first time, and I'm going to go through them. And I know it's going to be a list format, and hopefully this is not like monotonous, but Tango and Cash, Dirty Dancing, 16 Candles, Brewster's Millions, Bull Durham, After Hours, Blue Velvet, Scanners, Near Dark, Altered States, Conan the Barbarian, Lone Wolf McQuade, Red Dawn, Once Upon a Time in America, Clue, The Vanishing, Prince of Darkness, Christine, and Summer Rental. Those were the 19 movies that I had never seen before. I knew about probably a good 80 to 90% of them. Like I'd heard of them before. Probably I'd say 90, maybe even 95. I'd never heard of The Vanishing. I'd never really heard of Prince of Darkness. Summer Rental I'd never really heard of. Near Dark I'd never heard of. And that's about it. So like four of those, four of the 19 I had never heard about, which is pretty rare. I mean, I tend to think, and not to sound conceited here, I tend to think I know a good amount about movies, and I've, in the rumblings of research and movies, movie trivia and everything, I hear about a lot of these movies. And that's, I kind of want to get on the topic briefly about my background a little bit. Is, I studied film in college, and again, I've been a huge movie nerd my entire life. I like growing up, I would watch a movie and I would like fall in love with an actor or an actress, and then I would go through their entire filmography, pretty much for the most part, all the good ones at least, and then that would lead me into other movies. And I used to do a lot of what people call blind buying, where I'd go to the store like Circuit City or Best Buy, which Circuit City doesn't exist anymore, like Best Buy or like Suncoast Video. I used to go to those stores and be like, all right, this cover looks cool, or like, oh, I've heard like, oh, there's Brad Pitt's in this movie, like that looks cool, like I'll pick that up and watch that. So I love doing that. So I think, again, New Year's resolution for this year for our podcast, I want to do more movies that I have not seen, because I love that, and I want to have more conversation on those. Not that I want to, deny the other movies that are classic 80s movies, because we did a lot of classic 80s movies this year. I definitely want to expand my horizons and watch more movies, because that's what it's all about. First time watches are really fun.
Yeah, they are for sure.
So, yeah. Tell me about yours. Tell me about your first watches.
Yeah, so I had 36.
So
which
many.
I just tallied it up right before we started recording, which like is weird because it didn't feel like that like during the year. But yeah, I'm kind of blown away.
That means you've only seen 16
Yeah.
of the movies out of the 52.
Yeah, and like I double checked it, and I am correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like it makes sense because these are a lot of more obscure movies that we did this year. And then we threw in some like bangers that like you and I both love.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, but 36 is obviously well over half of the movies that we watched. So yeah, like you, I'd like to keep that streak going for this year. Which I'm excited. We already got like 2 months of the schedule planned, and it's gonna be really, really fun. And I'm sure we'll find some like crazy stuff to watch throughout the rest of the year. But yeah, so, do you want to start diving into our top 5 of the first watches?
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
The only thing I will say is there's probably 100% overlap between your first watch list and my first watch list. In terms of what you hadn't seen, I also hadn't seen. So we'll probably repeat a little bit on our top 5s, but that's okay.
So I want to start from the bottom. So like my fifth, my least favorite out of the top 5. I want to start with that and just kind of briefly talk about why I liked the movie.
Yeah.
So number 5 for me was Red Dawn.
Okay. Nice.
And I really liked that movie. I'd never seen it. I'd known about it for a long time. It's, the first PG-13 movie out there. It's kids going to war, basically, which is crazy. It seemed so raw and so well done. And who did? I think John Milius did that.
Yeah,
directed that.
Which
he also did
we did 3 Milius movies this year.
Conan,
Commando.
Red Dawn? No. Commando. Commando is
Conan's
Mark,
definitely.
Conan. Commando's
Milius.
Mark L. Lester.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But yeah, either way, John Milius is cool. I like him. He's a cool director. I like the direction. The movie's depressing. For an 80s movie, I thought it was super well done. It was like, I think I told you, and I said this in our review, I was like, I was glued to the screen the whole time, and it was one of like the first 80s movies that we had done that I was just like, whoa, that I hadn't seen. I was just like blown away by it and super entertained. And again, that's a pretty well-known movie, so I'm happy we watched that. I thought it was really good. What was your what was
my number 5? Just slipped by Red Dawn because I was debating between these two.
Oh, that's funny.
Which I'm glad you picked Red Dawn because I liked it a lot myself.
Yeah.
It'd probably be my number 6. But my number 5 for first watches was Once Upon a Time in America.
Okay. That was number 6 for me.
Yeah.
It was very
Nice.
close to getting into the top 5 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of like epics. If you go back and listen to our episode on Ron, you'll see how much I enjoyed that.
Which that is our most popular episode, I think, on Spotify.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening to that one. That was a fun episode to do.
Yeah, it is. I'm really glad we watched that. I'm really glad we watched Once Upon a Time in America. It's just like, especially watching in God, now I can't remember the director's name.
Sergio Leone.
Sergio Leone. Thank you. I was thinking Ennio Morricone, but I'm like, that's the composer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sergio Leone is one of my favorite directors, despite not being able to remember his name. Like the spaghetti westerns he directed, with Clint Eastwood, the No Man with No Name trilogy, it was just so good. So yeah, I'm glad that we got to watch something in a more modern context, even though it's a period piece. But yeah, I love that movie. I love those like sprawling kind of epics.
Yeah,
and
gangster
seeing that
film.
done outside of the Western context was really cool too.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Yeah, that was, like I said, that was like number 6 to me. That movie's just a long movie, and the rewatch value isn't there for me.
No,
So that's
you're
why
like tapped out on long movies lately.
I know.
So.
I've been saying that a lot, but I did enjoy it, especially so that movie I watched with 2 of my friends, one of which was Daniel, who was on the show for that
Yeah.
episode. And we just had a blast watching that, and it went by super fast. So I recommend watching that movie with friends, because it definitely made the runtime go by quicker, and having discussions about the movie after, like right after, was super, super entertaining and fun. So
Yeah.
definitely a good choice.
Yeah, I
All right.
watched that while I had COVID, so
Oh, wow.
I probably would have enjoyed it even more if I had watched it not sick. But
Yeah.
it was still super entertaining and awesome. So
That's like when we both got sick at the same time
I
too,
think
which is
so, yeah.
hilarious. And for our viewers that don't know, we're not in the same state. We live in
Yeah.
separate states. But yeah, okay. So number 4 for me was Clue.
okay,
I feel like our lists are different.
yeah, I think they are.
Yeah, I liked Clue because it was a comedy. We hadn't watched a ton of good comedies, in my opinion. We haven't watched a ton of comedies in general, I feel like, this year.
Yeah,
And I had been wanting to watch it for a long time. I had heard about it for a long time. Written by John Landis, who we like from, Blues Brothers. And he's known for a ton of stuff. Jonathan Lynn directed that from '85. I just thought it was really funny. I like the whodunit style. And it's slapstick, which I like. And all the characters are awesome in it. All the acting's great in it. It's a very under the radar movie, which I like. I'm super into movies like that, where it's just like not on anyone's list. And that movie should be on everyone's list because I thought it was great.
nice. Yeah, I'm glad you picked that one too. I know I didn't care for it as much as you did.
Yeah, I
when we
remember
talked
that.
about it. But I do think it's a good movie and should be watched by people,
Yeah.
despite my personal problems with it. My number 4 was First Blood Part 2.
I knew that would be on your list. I didn't know. I was
yeah.
just thinking that too. I didn't know how it would rank.
Yeah.
Yeah, that movie's awesome.
Yeah, I loved it. It was awesome. For all the reasons that we talked about in the episode, we don't need to like rehash it out here, but like
I really
it's
like
just
that
got,
episode, too.
Like so much like 80s action staple kind of set piece, like crazy action sequence, like it's just so cool. And like it's kind of what you want to see out of Rambo in the first one, where he just like goes ham and like just like wrecks people.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of satisfying, in for the audience, is especially if you are a big fan of the first Blood. And like, yeah, you get to see him kind of let loose, and it's like, all right, this is like what we wanted to see,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I took that movie for granted for sure. I forgot. I mean, if you go back to our review, I talk about it where I hadn't seen it in a long time, and watching that, we did that recently we did that last month for Sequels Month, which was a lot of fun. Sequels to the movies we'd already reviewed. That movie was awesome, and it made me really appreciate Stallone even more. And me, I was a big Schwarzenegger fan, and
You might be a convert.
I know he was awesome. So yeah, that's that movie. I mean, I totally understand why it's in your top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
I wonder. I'm curious now, and we'll see when we get to it, if your top 5 first time watches overlaps with your top 5 overall.
Only one does.
Is it First Blood?
Or sorry,
Part
2 do.
Is it First Blood Part 2?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm not going to ask any or say anything else. All right. Moving on. Number 3 for me, first time watch, was Near Dark. Another movie I think you didn't like as much.
I hated that movie.
I loved it. I thought it was awesome. Catherine Bigelow, great cast. Just had very James Cameron fingerprints on it, which I liked. Aliens, stuff like that. Terminator. That movie, it just was a cool concept on the vampire genre, especially for it being an 80s movie. It just felt very original. It was shot super gritty. It was acted really well, except for the beginning. The beginning is goofy as fuck.
Yeah.
But I love that movie. I thought it was awesome.
I will give it that it was a very original take on like the vampire mythology or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. Now, these movies, the hard part for me was like when I was going through these movies, especially the first time watch ones. Am I going to watch them again? That's the biggest question I have, even with my top 5. I probably will. Especially Red Dawn and Near Dark. Clue I might watch again. Like my top 2, I will watch again. I don't know soon, but I will definitely watch them in my lifetime. And that was a big part of why I chose these. Is again, rewatch value is huge for me. So
Yeah.
I more than likely will watch Near Dark again because it's a quick movie. A lot of these 80s movies are quick, but I remember Near Dark being quick and fun and original. All right, your number 3.
All right, my number 3 was Blue Velvet.
I knew that was going to be on your list too.
I really like David Lynch as a writer and director. Twin Peaks is like so weird and cool. This movie's very much in like the same type of vein where it's like a
Weird
lot
and
of
cool.
like, yeah, weird and cool, and like the like overacting and like surrealistic kind of like take on a like otherwise very like gritty and like grounded situation. It's just like I just think it's really cool, and the stuff he does is like really interesting and like keeps you really engaged in his film and TV shows overall. So yeah.
Yeah, that movie's good. I liked it. It definitely was. It's probably like number 7 for me for top 5
Yeah.
for top first watches. It was up there.
It's definitely probably the darkest movie that we watched this year.
Yeah.
And like it's up there with Altered States as the weirdest. But yeah, it's I just like Lynch's writing and directing so much.
Yeah. It was definitely an interesting movie. I enjoyed it, which I thought I wasn't going to. But yeah, that movie surprised me. I like that movie, and there's a lot to dissect in that movie. So go back and listen to that review as well. That one was a fun one.
Yeah, that's one where I'll need a few years to rewatch that.
Yes. Yeah. Number 2 for me, Tango and Cash. because it was just the perfect mold of 80s movies. It just fit that vibe, especially with it coming out in '89. It's like the last hurrah of '80s movies, and I'm gonna look this up, but I'm pretty sure it came out in like December or like
Yeah,
like it was literally
I
like
think
one of
so.
the last. So, that movie was fun. Another Stallone movie. Again, I'm converting slowly. Kurt Russell. I love anything with Kurt Russell. He's fucking awesome. The movie is ridiculous. It's so over the top and stupid and goofy, and it's just one of those. It's so bad it's good watches, and I will definitely watch that movie again. I don't think if that movie comes out on 4K, I am 100% buying it because it's awesome. Yeah, that movie was just super fun. I really enjoyed that. It just fit the mold of this whole podcast, and that's why I liked it, and that's why it's number 2. It's not number 1, and I'm excited to get to number 1 for that. But yeah, go for it, Jake.
All right, my number 2 is The Vanishing, which was the Dutch film about the girl that's kidnapped and murdered by Raymond. Because he's the only character's the name that I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was one where I think it was a Kubrick quote that prompted us to watch this, because Kubrick said it's the most terrifying movie he's ever seen or something like that.
Which it's not.
We talked about it not being
Yeah.
scary, which was a little weird, but like this movie did kind of stick with me. And like there's just a lot of good writing, and like the cinematography was awesome. The plot was like really interesting and captivating. And I think I talked about this in the episode too, but like I appreciate that there wasn't a whole bunch of dialogue because it's hard to read subtitles.
Yeah.
But it was funny at Christmas. One of my family members asked me about the podcast and asked me like, "Oh, what movies did you watch this year?" And this was the first one I thought of.
Interesting.
So I was like, okay, this made a pretty strong impact on me if that's the first one that popped in my head, you know?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I would like to watch this one again, in the near future.
Wow.
Because
Nice.
it was pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, definitely a good movie, and I bet on second viewing of that, you'd pick up more things.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one thing, and we, like you said, we talked about it, is Kubrick quoting that it's the scariest movie. I expected it to be like terrifying. I mean, yeah, the realistic nature of it was terrifying, but it's like going in with that expectation, it kind of altered my perception of the movie. And that's why it's not in the top 5 for me. But
Yeah.
it is a very well done movie. Very
Yeah.
well. All right, number 1 for me. Lone Wolf McQuade.
Nice.
That movie was awesome. Again, fit the 80s vibe, exactly why I wanted to do this podcast. It's so over the top. It's Chuck fucking Norris kicking ass. David Carradine or Keith? It's David Carradine.
Yeah.
And him trying to do karate and shit, and it was just fun. And the best scene in that movie, and like literally the epitome of 80s movies, is Chuck Norris being buried alive in his fucking Ram Charger, and then drinking a beer and pouring it over his face, and then driving out of the dirt,
Yeah.
like being buried alive, was fucking awesome. Yeah, that movie's just ridiculous, and it was hilarious. So, yeah, that's number 1 for me. That movie was so much fun. I really enjoyed it.
All right. My number 1 was Uncle Buck.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, that was when I talked about this in the episode. I don't know why I never had an interest in watching this. I'm really glad I did. I loved it.
Yeah.
So that'll probably be a regular something
Rerun.
like on a yearly or every other year basis. Because it's just super fun.
Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorite John Hughes movies. And I just watched Home Alone for Christmas. And again, John Hughes, his writing is just so good.
Yeah.
And this podcast made me realize how good of a writer he is. I mean, he obviously directed Uncle Buck. And Uncle Buck, I talk about it in that episode, it's just it is that and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles are the two 80s movies that are near and dearest to my heart just because those are the movies I grew up on, literally watching them all the fucking time. So Uncle Buck is a classic for me. That is an all-time favorite. All-time favorite.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on. Top 5 disliked movies of the year. And I bet our number one is probably the same.
I think so.
Okay, number 5, Brewster's Millions for me. It's a good movie. It's okay. It's a movie I'll never watch again. Another John Candy's in it, Richard Pryor. It could be remade, in my opinion, and probably be better, but it's like, it just was an okay movie. A lot of these movies aren't necessarily bad movies. Like, Brewster's Million isn't a bad movie. It's just not great.
It's not as good as it should have been.
Yeah.
Like, and we talked about that in the episode that, like,
Yeah.
it was, like, stacked with talent.
Yeah.
And it feels like it was just wasted. So, yeah, it's disappointing, I think, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah. What was
All
number
right.
5?
Near Dark. Yeah, I just
Damn.
really didn't like it.
Damn.
I thought the acting was kind of crappy and over the top. Particularly Bill Paxton, I think, was like just way too over the top.
I love him. He's great in anything, in my opinion. But
This is like the one movie that I don't like him in. So yeah, that movie could have been a lot better in my opinion. Also, so again, a little disappointing considering what it had going for it.
fair enough. Number 4 for me, 16 Candles. I had high
Oh,
hopes
really?
for that movie.
Okay.
I had high hopes for that movie, and it just did not hold up. It has not aged well at all for me. I just,
That's true.
yeah, it has not aged well. And, you know, it was a first-time watch for me this year, and I just didn't care for it that much. I like the ending. I mean, I like Molly Ringwald. I love John Hughes, obviously. It just didn't do it for me. Especially with people saying it's a classic, it did not live up to the hype. So,
My number 4 was Police Academy. I know a lot of people would be upset to hear that because there's like this huge like cult following of that movie, and I just
Yeah.
didn't understand why.
yeah. So that's number 3 for me.
Okay.
So number 3, Police Academy for me. I didn't care for it as well. I expected it to be way funnier. I think the sequels might be funnier because I remember watching. I don't remember which one, but I just remember them being funnier, but also not memorable. But I was super young, so
Yeah.
But watching the first one, I just didn't care for it. Knowing that I didn't like the first one, I'm probably never going to watch the sequels again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's number 3. So that was Police Academy was your number 4, right?
Yep.
Okay, so what's your number 3?
Tango and Cash. I just didn't like it.
Oh, dude.
don't know.
Damn.
For like I don't know. I felt like that movie should have been more serious and less goofy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one where I just need to rewatch it with like a different frame of mind.
I think we need to
and-
rewatch that together and
Yeah,
laugh our asses off.
that's
at it.
probably-
have a drink in our hand and watch that movie and laugh because
Yeah.
that's what that movie's all about, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
I think for whatever reason I had a different set of expectations for that movie and it just didn't meet it.
yeah, I mean it's not
So-
written well,
No,
But-
it's not.
but and that's kind of why it's funny.
Yeah, which because Stallone did not write that at all,
don't
right?
think so.
I don't think he has a writing credit in it,
He does not. I just
which
checked. I
is
have it pulled up.
probably why it's not as good as it could have been.
Yeah. It was fun though. I liked it. So, and then just for everyone who's listening, Jake and I did not discuss any of our top or
No.
dislikes or anything. This is all this is all in the moment live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Tango and Cash. Okay, so that was your number 3.
Yep.
Number 2 for me was Bull Durham.
Okay.
I did not like that movie.
I debated putting it on here.
But you know your wife likes it, so she'd
My
be
wife
upset.
likes it. She'd be upset. Also, I didn't like hate that movie.
I didn't hate it.
It was like I feel like it would be like maybe like number 6 or 7 on this list
Okay.
for me.
And
It's
to be
not
fair-
enough to be number 2.
These are dislikes. It's not that I hated them.
Yeah, yeah.
I just didn't like them. I didn't care for them. Like I'll never watch
No,
them.
my number 1
Again.
is a hate.
Oh, same, and it's the same. I guarantee it's the same. So, because we're I know, yeah, we're getting there. Okay, number 2 is what for you?
Brewster's Millions.
Oh, okay.
I was highly disappointed in that movie.
Yeah, it
Just
had a lot
should
of-
have been so much better.
Yeah, agreed. All right, number 1. Should we say it at the same time, Jake?
Yeah.
Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing for sure.
Yeah. So I'm sure people will be surprised by that. But again, that was kind of a movie that was hyped up. It's supposed to be a classic. I thought it was fucking terrible. And
Yeah, like
again,
everything about it was just so bad.
Yeah. And I love Patrick Swayze. He's awesome. Yeah, it just wasn't good.
Yeah.
So I go to our review and listen to that one, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Yeah. I don't care what frame of mind I'm in, I'm not going to like that one.
Yeah. All right. So top 5 overall of the year. Okay, starting with number 5 for me, First Blood Part 2.
Nice.
We talked about that. It just was. I took it for granted. It's an awesome movie. It's an awesome sequel. What's your number 5?
Aliens.
Okay. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I have honorable mentions, and that's an honorable mention for me because that movie's just
Yeah.
classic. I wanted to not choose The Usual Suspects as much, and that was the hard part for me doing this. And it's also hard to pick a top, like my top 5, like my favorite movies. It's like it's hard to do that because I mean we watched some bona fide fucking classics.
Yeah. But my
so.
my list is going to be pretty
I had a feeling.
on par with
I had a feeling.
the classics. So.
Yeah, I had a feeling. Number 4 for me, Predator. I can watch that movie all the time. That movie's just awesome. That movie lives in my head rent free. It's full of awesome quotes. It's Arnold. It's machoism. It's fucking destruction. It's gory. It's scary. It's action packed. Awesome fucking movie.
My number 4 was The Vanishing. I
Okay, there's the
was
overlap.
not lying when I said I liked it a lot.
Yeah, damn. I'm impressed.
I'm super glad we watched it.
Yeah, hell yeah, right on. Okay, number 3 for me, Midnight Run. I love that
Almost
movie.
made my top 5 dislike list.
I had a feeling. Midnight Run, another movie that's just like very classic 80s to me. Robert De Niro in a different role than he's normally in. It's so fun. It's a road trip movie. It's a buddy movie. And I love those type of movies. Like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, like I said, is one of my favorite 80s movies. This movie has that vibe. And it's hilarious. And I recommend this to pretty much all my friends for movies that if they haven't seen it, it's just, I love that movie. It's a surprise hit for me.
Nice.
Again, didn't want to choose all the bona fide classics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 3 for
you?
me, Uncle Buck.
Nice.
Again, loved it. Super happy we watched it.
Yeah. That's my number 2, Uncle Buck.
Nice.
It's so high up there on my list. I really almost put it as number 1, but the number 1 movie for me is one of my all-time favorites ever. Okay, number 2 for you?
Predator.
Okay.
Yeah, like that's. I didn't want to jump in while you were talking about it because we would have skipped like 1 or 2 spots. But yeah, I mean, it's like one of the things I think is super fun about this podcast is that we're watching some of these movies that we've seen before with a more critical eye. And like my Predator and then my number one are actually two movies that watching them more critically actually made me appreciate them a lot more. So that's why they're my number one and number two of the year.
Right on. I love that.
Yeah,
Love to hear that.
Predator's just like so good in
Yeah.
like every way, like
Yeah.
you said. So,
Yeah.
all right,
Agreed.
number one for you.
The Thing.
Nice.
That movie, I can watch that movie any time of the year. It's so chilling. It's so cold. It's such a great horror movie. It's so well done. It's such a cult classic. I fucking love that movie. It is awesome. I love anything John Carpenter does.
Yeah,
and
it should not be a cult classic. It should just be
I
a
know.
straight up bona fide classic.
yeah, that movie is awesome. It's scary. It's thrilling. It's just a awesome, awesome movie that I could watch anytime. And I think we talk about it in the podcast. I think I showed you that movie, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we watched it. I think in
Yeah.
college.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that movie. It's so good.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
because
that's number one.
I had seen the remake or the reboot,
The
which was like kind of shitty.
2011 or whatever, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you were like, "Have you seen the original?" And then we watched it, and I was like, "Dude, fuck yeah!"
Yeah. Number one.
Number one, Temple of Doom.
That was close to being my number one, too.
It's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's just so
Yeah.
good. And like I said, critically watching it this time, I was just like really kind of amazed at some of the writing, the storytelling. Like we talked about all the visual effects, like learning how that was done is like super crazy and just gives me so much greater appreciation. And yeah, it's just such a good movie. And
Yeah.
in the Indiana Jones canon, like going to such a dark place as like the follow up to Raiders, which is like the establishing, film is like kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But just so cool. And like really opens up the like Indiana Jones myth to like such a different type of like culture and setting and like everything, and like really like establishes him as like the globe-trotting explorer.
Yeah.
Instead of just always hanging out in like Egypt and Europe. like if this was taken out of the original trilogy, like he's just fighting Nazis in different parts of Nazi era, World War II era, Germany and
Yeah.
and Egypt, and it's like, okay, like but like this movie is like really necessary in my opinion to cement that like legacy in
Oh,
like,
yeah.
a really great way.
It's such a true adventure film.
Yes, yeah,
It's just, yeah, that movie's awesome. That was going to be my number one, but that was a movie I like forgot we were doing. I mean, obviously I didn't put it on the list, on Instagram at least. And when I watched it, I think I watched it over like 2 or 3 days because I was just so busy. So like, I mean, but again, rewatching it again and having that critique like you did, I appreciated it so much more because it's so fun, and I loved doing that review. That episode was our last episode we just did.
yeah.
That episode was fun, really fun to do, and it did make me appreciate it a lot more. But it's the usual suspects to me, and it's an honorable mention. Like honorable mentions for me: Aliens, RoboCop, Back to the Future, those movies, Commando, the Indiana Jones movies. Those are obviously bona fide classics and staples from the 80s era, that I just didn't want to put those as my top for this. And I also, yeah, I mean, maybe I should have taken into account like how fun we had with the reviews that we did with all
Yeah.
these, but I mean, I still had fun with all those reviews. And I like the underrated, so that's why my list is the way it is.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to continue this podcast. This podcast has been a lot of fun. Pretty cool that we did 52 movies in the year. Our next, so this month coming up, I like that we've been doing themes for our month, our months of the year. Next is going to be, like, our next episodes are listener recommendations. So we had 2 people that reached out to us on Instagram that recommended some movies. We're going to watch those. And then one of my coworkers recommended me an 80s movie that Jake and I haven't seen. So this will be, speaking of that kind of New Year's resolution of watching more movies first time, like having our first time watches. We got 3 movies coming up, and I am excited for those because, again, we haven't seen them. What do we got, Jake? You know the names. I feel like you just pulled them up.
So next week is The Beast, which I think is 1987.
Yeah, so Nick on Instagram recommended that to us, so thank you, Nick. And we'll shout you out in the episode when we do it.
It's 1988. It's a war movie, so I'm excited for that one. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just from what comes up when you Google it and the the pictures. So after that, we've got Midnight Madness.
Yep, which Jeff on Instagram also recommended to us. Says it's an obscure comedy. So looking forward to that. It's Michael J. Fox. Never seen that, never even heard of it. So that's awesome.
Neither.
We love recommendations like that. And then we've got The Burbs, right?
Yep.
Yeah, my coworker / boss recommended that to me. He's recommended that multiple times, so it's about time we watch it. And again, Jake and I have never seen it, so I'm looking forward to watching that. Tom Hanks is in that. Yeah, and then January's over, which is crazy. It's already begun, but it's just begun. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. If you guys want to recommend anything else to us, we will do what we're doing for this month. We're going to watch them, review them, shout you out, and we appreciate that. That's awesome. I love listener feedback. I want people to watch movies like this and to discover cool 80s movies. So you guys recommending cool 80s movies to us that we've never seen, awesome. Love that. So thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for a great year, for listening, for all the support and feedback. And I'm excited for a whole nother year, which is crazy to think of.
Yeah.
Another 52 movies. We didn't take a break this year. We took a break last year during Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was fine with no break. We'll see how we do this year.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, Jake?
No, I think you nailed it. Thanks
Awesome.
for listening, everybody.
Yeah, we'll catch you next week with an actual movie.
Yep. See ya.
Take care.